Hello, I am I am back from my doctor's appointment, and it's probably important that I start talking about what this project is and what it's about. And this project is collage, and can it help heal PTSD? And this is really where the origins of this project came from. It was from a three-piece collage series that I did for a class called Art and War, taught by Richard Lerman at ASU West. And the assignment was to find out, what does war mean to me? And this was the first piece, and it was called The Mythical Glory. And it was the idea that people get from the news and from propaganda what we're fighting for, and that, there's this us and them mentality. We're the good guys, they're the bad guys. We're fighting for freedom and for children, the American way of life, and that they're indoctrinated and they're these bad people and they're all bad, and we have to go in there with guns blazing and bring American values, and we have to go in there and get rid of these bad ideals and Americanize their way of life, which is not the way it is. Not every single person is a bad person. Their way of life is not a bad way of life. It's just a different way of life. We're not all War Machine. We're not all Superman. To go in there with guns blazing and a million bombs is not the answer. They're not all indoctrinated. They're not all bad people. It's just not reality. Our children versus their children. It's just not a realistic way of life. We don't have one set of doctrine ideals. Neither do they. And so that was the first collage. And then the second collage was harsh reality. And as you can see, there's not one face type. There's not one ideal. There's not one response. It's a lot of pain. It's a lot of anguish. Shooting a video, there's a lot of, there's, isolated soldiers. There's people suffering. There's people fighting back. There's children that are hurting, children that are starving, children are the ones being affected. There's pain, there's suffering. You can't tell the good guys from the bad guys because they all look the same. And, when I showed this piece, there was a lot of people that are like, wow, that's really difficult to watch. And I'm like, yeah, it's difficult to watch in reality too. It's desensitized a lot of times on the news and in propaganda. Try being there. So I wanted people to get the sense of what the propaganda is versus what the reality is, and through the ages, and it doesn't change. Some of these images are World War II, some of these images are Iraq and Afghanistan. War doesn't change. War is war. And it's difficult no matter what age it's a part of. And people on both sides die and suffer. So that was that piece. And then the third piece that I did was aftermath. And it was the aftermath of the people who come back, or the people who don't come back, and who's left behind. And what it is to be among the walking wounded, what it is to remember and to not be able to leave it behind. And today we have things like adaptive sports. Today we have things that are supposed to care and things that are supposed to help us, but what does that mean? And then what does it mean to resent being sent over there? And it's not just Vietnam vets that resent it. There are vets today that resent it. There are vets today that are not getting the help that they need and the treatment that they need. And so all of this experience was very cathartic for me in getting a lot of things out that I wanted to say. And when I started thinking about image as language, and image as a form of communication, it led me to hypothesize that if you have PTSD and if you've been through a traumatic experience, you could use this as a means of processing your trauma, your specific trauma, as opposed to talk therapy, or even in concert with talk therapy. Because symbology and the way symbols work in the brain is similar to the way actual words work in the brain. And we say a picture is worth 1,000 words. There's a reason for that. And so I wanted to be able to explore and use this as a mechanism of art therapy treatment. And that's really what my thesis is and what my capstone is focusing on. And it's focusing on 4 different aspects. Fear, which is the trauma itself. Depression, which is an emotional side effect. Physical pain, which is the body's response to what the mind is going through, in addition to any physical injury you may have suffered during your trauma. And then joy. Joy being resolution at the end. Being able to find joy in the pain. Monty Python's always look at the bright side of life, as he's hanging there on the cross in the life of Brian, And he says, yeah, life is shit, but hey, it could always be worse. And so looking at joy in that aspect of you're here, now what do you do? So that is the goal of my project, and this diary is going to be a record of that experience and what it entails for me as part of my research. So follow along over the next couple of months. I'm sure I'll have up and down days, and we shall see what that entails for me. Thanks.